And so, but Bernie still remembered, you know, that that a lot of his friends were Puyallups and Muckleshoots were very poor and could hardly even buy shoes for their kids, you know, and a lot of them had problems with medical care. You know, they couldn't afford doctors, couldn't afford to go to hospitals, and so he thought that maybe it's time that someone did something about this. So that's when he pretty much decided to devote his life to helping his people, you know, and. Also, when he moved to Seattle, he finally got a job at Boeing and at Plant 2, and so he moved to Seattle, and he thought that if he could somehow train young Indians, you know, the heritage, you know, the dancing, the singing, you know, the drumming and all this, with the help of several Plains and Plateau Indians who really knew this stuff, that he could somehow revive the Indian culture for Indians who had to live in cities, you know, which were then called urban Indians, you know. And so he devoted his time to doing this. And then about 6 white people, one was Japanese, they decided that they would try to volunteer and try to form a medical center for Indians here in Seattle. And they worked night and day at this, you know, spent a lot of time. These people were Jill Marsden, who was from England, Ty Griffith and his wife Donna, you know. Ty Griffith is part Sioux, but he's a doctor, you know. And then there was Pete and Hinda Schnerman, who had come from New York City. They're Jewish. And then there was this Evelyn Takahashi, I think her name is, and she's Japanese, and she's a pharmacist. Anyway, they finally, by working closely together and getting doctors and nurses to volunteer their time to help Indians in here in Seattle, they got funding. You know, they got enough funding to hire a director, and they wanted it to be an Indian. The director to be an Indian, and the only person they could think of was Bernie. You know, because Bernie was well spoken. You know, he's the kind of a guy that even now, or before he died, he could speak for hours about using notes. You know, he never needed notes. And so they talked Bernie into becoming the first executive director of the Seattle Indian Health Board. I think that was 1971. But anyway, Bernie was admitted, you know, he didn't know that much about health, although he knew that it was very important, you know, that health be given to Indians here in Seattle because they couldn't afford it. And because of that, a lot of the Indian kids were missing school because they get sick and they could not get cured quickly enough, and they get set back in their schooling, so it was affecting a lot of Indian kids who were going to school here in Seattle. Anyway, Bernie finally told Ty Griffith and Jill Marsden that he'd like to move on. He spent about a year being the first director of the Seattle Indian Health Board. He said, but I'm more interested in land, you know, and I've got to figure out, you know, where we can get it.